So in this week's chapter of One Piece, we find out about the clone army of Germa 66, and we find out about Sanji's upbringing. And apparently, he's just a normal boy. But that's not good enough for his daddy.
Speaking of clone army, isn't it crazy that Christian is finally back in a freaking review? I assure you, he is not a clone who has been sitting in a tank created by Germa 66. But this week's chapter of One Piece was very eye-opening as we finally learned why Germa 66 is so powerful in the first place. Seems like since the beginning of Dawn of Time, they have been creating these clones and taking over everything. Now, my initial thought from last week's chapter is that there is the potential that Sanji, his brothers, and his sister were indeed clones themselves. Not exactly. Apparently they were still genetically modified by their father, Jaji. And this week's chapter was really eye-opening as we finally got to see what Sanji's childhood life was like. And big shock, it's super freaking tragic. Everybody hates Sanji, and it even goes as far as to throwing him into a freaking cage at the end of the chapter and trapping him within an iron mask, which either is A, just to fuck with his head a little bit, or B, is just a weird reference to the man in the iron mask.
Before we get onto his childhood, though, Corey, I think we have to talk about his dad, because that's one thing we haven't mentioned yet. And his dad worked with Vegapunk,
yes,
the elusive scientist, which we never actually see, and he is involved in everything.
What is the deal with Vegapunk?
I don't know.
Why do they always mention this guy and never ever show him? He has key connections to a lot of the characters from the series, some of which are even freaking on the Straw Hat crew, like Frankie.
Is he alive? I don't even know the question to that. Do we know that? I don't think so. I'm sure someone's looking it up on a wiki and can tell me. But what I'm saying is, we don't know much about this character, and him being involved with Germa 66 makes sense because, well, they're very scientifically advanced sort of society. Yeah, they pretty much only make weapons, but, you know, it makes sense. You know, you had Caesar Clown, you know, Vegapunk. Now you have Germa 66, Vegapunk. You have Frankie, Vegapunk. So this character is, you know, weaving his web throughout most of the main cast we keep running into that have scientific backgrounds. So that immediately drew my attention. I was like, maybe we'll actually see something about that. But not really.
I don't know. They've been dropping Vegapunk hints for, like, almost the entire series. It's actually getting kind of crazy at this point.
It's like on One Piece level.
Pretty much, yeah, exactly. Speaking of which, I honestly don't even think that the author really knows what he wants to do with Vegapunk quite yet.
No.
Maybe more so he doesn't have a design for the character yet, because I can't even really imagine what he's going to look like. There have been a few scenes in the manga, in the anime, where you can kind of slightly see his hands, but they just look like normal hands for the most part. So I'm really interested to see what they're going to do with this Vegapunk character and if it is actually going to sort of like tie in with everything here. And I really want to know, like, is Vegapunk a good guy? Is he a bad guy? He's helped out the villains. He's helped out the heroes.
I just want to see him get together with Luffy and make Luffy a mech suit. And everyone's eyes explode with stars when they see it.
Oh my god.
And that's how he's introduced.
I mean, it wouldn't be that insane. I mean, we've already had Luffy transforming into monsters and having a boxing afro and everything. It wouldn't be weird to have another transformation for him. It'd probably be more fitting for a character like Frankie, but then again, he's already been decked out by Vegapunk, and he's already has, like, his mech that he actually rides in.
He didn't actually meet Vegapunk. He just found a laboratory and used his research. Correct?
Right?
Yes.
I think so.
I'm pretty sure.
That's went down.
That's what happened because he went to that island with all the Vegapunk animals, and he's like, oh, there's probably some cool resources here, and fixed his blown up face. You remember that? He was like a robot face. So yeah, the Vegapunk stuff immediately interesting to me. I was like, oh, you know, that's like when we find out stuff about like One Piece. It's like big overarching, you know, knowing these things is really big. But it almost overshadows in my mind the backstory of Sanji because we've been waiting to see him forever. I mean, he was like, what, the third Straw Hat member? And now we're finally getting to see his backstory. And apparently being a normal kid is not good enough to be part of Germa 66 royal family.
The one thing is, yes, you are right, the whole Vegapunk thing arguably is more interesting than what's actually going on in this chapter, because we already know that Sanji hates his family. We already know that he wants nothing to do with them, and we've already seen some flashbacks of him and his brothers and his sister when they're younger and everything. And this chapter is basically just more of the same, but it does emphasize the fact that they were genetically modified to be perfect soldiers, to be the ultimate warriors. But for some odd reason, even though they genetically modified Sanji, it seems like nothing really came about of that. And it might have something to do either with his personality or the fact that these abilities didn't manifest until later in his life. Because, I mean, the series has proved that Sanji's a freaking badass. Like, he doesn't need devil fruit powers, and for some odd reason, he has the abilities to cause his legs to just, explode into a fiery flame and kick you in the face. So he clearly has some really awesome abilities. Hell, in this chapter, I love when he's finally confronted by Niji and he ends up just kicking him right in the face. Only for Niji to come back and to knee him right in the back and punch him in the face, which I loved that scene because it also established how far his brothers and sister are willing to go. They don't have problems with using their fists in battle, which is something that is very taboo to Sanji himself. It does a great job of showing how different these characters are, despite the fact that they are family.
Also, I think that I would like to point out, I did not see Sanji having the bracelets on. I felt like that was a mistake in the art. I don't think... Because he's supposed to have these bracelets on that if he runs away, his hands will get blown off.
I didn't even notice that.
I didn't see them in this, so I think that might be a mistake. Go back and check. I might be wrong. Or at least on a page or two, they made that mistake.
Yeah. I was paying more attention to all the Vegapunk stuff and the fact that this week's opening page was really funny. With all of the bears, with Kuma, Kamashi the zombie bear, the hiking bear from frickin' Chopper's Island was there. Not to mention we had Beppo, of course, who's a member of Trafalgar Law's crew, a member of the Mink tribe. And it was just really funny. It was basically the ultimate homage to Winnie the Pooh, where they're all just sort of hanging out and getting drunk on honey. It was just a fantastic scene, to say the least. It's not too often that the creator of the series references, like, Western works, so I really appreciated that a lot.
Yeah, and sometimes the color pages are pretty awesome, and that's definitely what happened this week. Because sometimes they're just okay. They're just like, oh, there's Luffy at a buffet. Yeah. Big surprise.
So what's the deal with Sanji's Iron Mask?
I think that is a psychological game they're playing. And I think he just runs away. But surprisingly, how does he run away? Because he's just a normal kid, and he's surrounded by super soldiers. Do you think he has some help? Maybe that's what they're going to get to.
It's possible. There's going to be some other flashback or some other event we're going to have to see where he somehow does get away from his family, makes it out to sea, eventually getting to that opportunity where he meets Zeph for the very first time. It's just, we still don't know exactly how that's going to go down. I am interested to see how that's going to happen, though.
Yeah, I think that's going to be interesting. I don't really know where they go from here in the next chapter. Like, if I had to start doing predictions, I wouldn't mind going back to Luffy and seeing his fight, guys.
Seriously.
Just letting you know.
What's the deal with Luffy and Cracker? That was like weeks ago, and their battle started to get incredibly epic with the true form of Cracker being revealed. Luffy actually having to go into Gear 4th just to fight against this guy, which didn't finish him off, by the way. I mean, yes, we are action junkies. We are really excited to see that, but it is a shame they're getting away from that. Because they could have saved this whole Sanji stuff for later. I don't know.
Well, at the same time, what about Zoro? Let's see what's going on with Zoro. Going on to...
But that's the problem with One Piece right now, though. There's so many characters, and they're all kind of doing their own thing. The Straw Hats are separated. Everybody's going on their own little quest. And, it's really up to the author to make these decisions. And if the One Piece series has showed us anything, is that they can jump around and do whatever the hell they want.
They can, and it still works for some reason. I'm sure that's not traditional storytelling, but it works. Also, you guys, well, what about, like, rating-wise? What do you think for this one?
It's hard to say. I mean, I did like the chapter, but I'm still a little bummed that we didn't get back to Luffy versus Cracker, but I did appreciate everything that was here. It was a little wordy. Otherwise, I still liked all of the artwork, especially all the flashback sequences with Sanji and his brother and sister. Speaking of which, the sister is still clearly the nicest member of the family, as she doesn't hate Sanji, but if something's, like, really bad, like, if nobody, like, approves of what Sanji's doing, she'll still, like, go with the other members of the family, but that's because she doesn't want to get beaten herself.
Okay, so what else has she done since we've seen her character?
Not really anything.
Nope, wrong. She helped Luffy.
That's true!
Boom! What I'm saying is, she's probably... If there's a friend to be recruited in this group, it's definitely the sister.
That would be weird if, because everybody's trying to come up with their theory right now for who's going to be the next Straw Hat.
We've never got a new Straw Hat in, like, 2 years. So
I know, which is really strange for the series, because it used to be, like, whenever an arc would begin, they'd introduce a character who was kind of quirky, had some sort of interesting backstory, some sort of dream, and then they would end up joining the crew.
They're going to need a bigger boat. Sorry, let me just drop that in.
Jesus Christ. For all the Jaws fans out there.
Well, if they keep recruiting people.
But it would be funny to see, like, another female member on the crew, who just so happens to be the sister of another main member, but... I don't know, I just think that dynamic would be funny. For some odd reason, I really always wanted to see, like, a family dynamic on the Straw Hat crew, despite the fact that they are kind of a family in some senses, not in like a blood relations kind of way.
But they're like, they've been through so much, their bond is unbreakable.
Like, initially, before they revealed everything about Momonosuke and his true father and everything, I always wanted him and Kinemon to join the crew, but Kinemon's not actually Momonosuke's father. So that's probably not going to be happening now. But just something about that whole family dynamic is just something that I think would be interesting. But still, like, let me get back on track here. Going back to the chapter, giving it a score and everything, I still really enjoyed it. I loved all of the artwork, especially that opening Winnie the Pooh homage. I loved the action scene where Sanji was fighting against his brother and just kicking him in the face. Just classic Sanji. I love that he gets really over the top and has to do this upside down swirling kick, kind of like Chun-Li from Street Fighter. That was awesome. And all the stuff with his flashbacks and the Iron Mask was really good. So I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 this week. I really liked it.
You pretty much stole my score. I said it was a great chapter, good backstory. We had some action in the present. We got to find out about their clone army. Everything was just fun. So 4 out of 5 for me as well. So thank you guys for watching this review. If you like it, give us a thumbs up. And if you get a chance, check out our podcast, The Powerful Nerdcast. Corey and I are about to record a new episode right now.
That is right.
That's cool. So thank you guys again for watching. We really appreciate it. Make sure to like, subscribe, and all that stuff. And until next time, stay dandy, baby. So in this week's chapter of One Piece, we find out about Germa 66 clone army, and we find out about Sanji's backstory. Well, it's about time, Corey, we find out about his backstory, right? It's about time! What do you think, Corey? That was good! That wasn't bad at all! Science!